6 years after finishing his run on Nathan For You, Nathan Fielder has returned to his docu-comedy format. The Rehearsal brings back his improvised, deadpan style of interacting with non-actors, and in many ways, improves upon it. Like many people, I was immediately impressed by what Fielder did with the pilot episode, and that's what I want to go over today. I want to highlight the techniques Fielder and his team used to create a compelling and hilarious first episode. Let's do this. So like I said, I want to go over the first episode of The Rehearsal, Orange Juice No Pulp, and just sort of break down what I think makes that first episode so great. Nathan and his team really put a lot of interesting stuff together, and I want to highlight all of it and my interpretations of why it works. Also, none of what The Rehearsal is doing is groundbreaking. I know that. There are many other successful shows and movies that do what this show is doing, especially in the realm of reality TV, but that doesn't mean it's not worth analyzing. I just really appreciate the way they executed everything. So quickly, before getting into the show itself, I think we should do a quick primer on Nathan Fielder himself. I'm Canadian, which means legally I have to tell you that he's Canadian. I don't make the rules. Now, if we look on his Wikipedia page, we can see that he looks like this. If we get closer under genres, the first thing listed is alternative comedy. This isn't alphabetical, so you know it's important. So if we inspect that, we can find out that alternative comedy can be defined as comedy that makes a conscious break from the mainstream comedic style of an era. That's a pretty accurate definition of Nathan Fielder. And did I mention he's Canadian? Let's go into how they set up the premise of the show. They don't begin with Nathan, but with the subject of the episode, Corey Skeet. We open with him, see his first interaction with Nathan, and the premise of the show is explained to him as it's being explained to us. And it's being done by Nathan revealing that he had rehearsed this situation himself. It gives us both the premise of the show and highlights the elaborate heights that Nathan wants to go to with this series. And that's the beauty of it. If he had just explained the premise of the show, either to the audience or to Corey himself, it would make sense to us, but it wouldn't have the same impact. Peeling away the curtain like that, it's almost like having a short film version of the episode play before the episode, so we get that sort of in media res start. It makes me think of the beginning of The Matrix that has that little short Trinity scene that shows off the style and action and effects of the movie before getting into the main plot, giving you a taste of what's to come. Nathan's doing that. He is telling us, oh, this is my elaborate idea, and look, it works. It's a tested system, and he's proving that. And of course, that's not true either. The entire premise comes from the fact that Nathan and his Nathan For You team would do little rehearsals of what they thought would happen before actually filming the episodes. And they have said that that stuff never actually worked out. People did not go according to plan. But he still thought the act of doing it was funny, and now he's created a show around that, and he has to essentially prove the opposite of truth. He has to prove that the rehearsals are a good idea and that they work. And in that opening scene, he succeeds in doing so. Compare this setup to Nathan For You, a show that, because it's more grounded in classic reality TV that we as an audience are familiar with, it gets away with showing that it is a comedic take on that just by having a few lines of explanation in a 30-second intro.
My name is Nathan Fielder, and I graduated from one of Canada's top business schools with really good grades.
Like I said, it's a simpler premise, and it's like things we've seen before. It can get away with that. While The Rehearsal and Nathan For You share a lot of its style and everything in its DNA, they are very different shows. The Rehearsal would not be able to be explained in a quick 30-second clip, especially in that first episode. You need a little more to really not just grasp onto what they're saying they want to do, but what they are actually doing. And that's why that beginning nails it. Part of what makes the execution of The Rehearsal's pilot work so well is their subject core. The man they plan to help here is kind of the perfect first subject for this premise. He comes off as a fairly grounded, low-key guy, and that's what you need, so that way when all this weird stuff is thrown at him, he sort of takes it in strides. He's more accepting of the premise than if you had gotten a bigger personality who would question things or cause more drama. Him not being skeptical or defensive really allows for a smooth transition from being explained it to going along with it. Big ups to whoever made the decision to go with Core, because he's paramount in this episode.
Cheap chick in the city.
Cheap chick in the city.
Cheap chick in the city.
When casting something in the reality TV realm, it's easy to want to go for a big personality, someone who will get defensive or angry or dramatic, because drama and tension is good entertainment. But that's not what they need here. They need Core. Because this isn't traditional reality TV, it's comedy. Core is our straight man, and a big dramatic character would not have worked as a juxtaposition between himself and Nathan. Not that there isn't drama, but we'll get to that.
Allison meets her first bride of the day, a woman who has an eye for fashion.
Using voiceover to tell the story, link scenes, and fill in the holes is a staple of reality television, and Nathan Fielder has really honed in on this. He uses it not only to stitch together clips and smooth out any wrinkles in the storytelling, but to deliver some fantastic jokes all over, and some really great ones at that. I'm always tickled, no matter how many times he does it, where he narrates a person thinking or saying something, and then they cut to a shot of that person saying that thing almost verbatim because they took the narration out of their dialogue and just preempted it. It's simple, but it works. It's great comedy. But just in general, the craft of this series is really on point. I was recently watching a Thomas Flight video on The Bear, and he was talking about the two main visual styles of the show being quick close-up shots linked together to create tension, and long unbroken takes to allow room for character drama to breathe. And I'm really interested in how that show creates juxtaposition between the two, because if it did just one or the other, it wouldn't be enough. You need to have them together to work. And that comes up in the first episode of The Rehearsal as well. The entire episode is built on quick cuts of preparation, showing off the elaborate bar setup, going from take after take after take of trying different things, showing off everything they do with tons of voiceover narration to fill in the gaps, set up the jokes, set up the weird things that Nathan is doing that the subject doesn't even know about, and it's all building to this conversation where Core is going to tell his friend that he has been lying to her. All of this is amping up the tension, and by amping up the tension, what they're really doing is amping up the comedy more and more, because it is such a ridiculous premise. But all that fades when we finally get to the conversation between Core and Trisha. After a quick setup from Nathan, the voiceover gets removed and the editing slows down to more traditional coverage, and we just watch it all play out. The show brought us through all this prep, all these rehearsals, and finally, as it all slows down, we end up feeling Core's feelings with him. We're there, and our nerves and his nerves start to build as he starts to tell her, and we all together feel that relief as she takes it well. From there, the editing picks up a little, and we get some voiceover to get us back into that mindset, but it doesn't come back in the same way because we have had our first resolution, and it allows us to lead into the second moment that the episode is essentially building to. Nathan has a heart-to-heart with Core, and we are still in that vulnerable emotional state with Core as we go into it, and it's brilliant. When Nathan tells Core, who's more happy about winning the trivia night than anything else, that he incepted the answers to the quiz on their walks, it's a wonderful choice on so many levels. First and foremost, the act of him admitting it is a great joke. Combine Nathan's awkward, deadpan delivery that he's so good at doing with the act of telling a man that they were going on walks and they were running into things that were secretly planned and planted there to teach him things, so that way he could cheat on a trivia game, is fantastic. It's so strange. It's so unlike what we would expect a human interaction to be in a lot of ways, and that's why I think it works as comedy. But there's a great second layer to this, because Core is really betrayed. Trivia competitions are his whole thing. It's his identity. It's how he views himself and how he wants the world to view him as someone who is good at trivia. So having an asterisk on a win for him is legitimately hurtful. And he feels truly betrayed, and his emotions are completely valid and completely understandable when Nathan tells him this. And this lets the show paint Nathan as the villain of the series. And again, this works on more than one level. The first is that it just adds another level of drama. Like I said, Core was upset to find this out, and Nathan only cranks this up as the show goes on. But I find there's a second meta level where he is representing reality TV producers. There is no secret at this point that reality TV is manipulated. Either in small things like adding reactions from people who didn't make that reaction in that scene and just cutting it in from somewhere else to heighten a moment, or using talking heads and voiceover and editing to make people or events seem different than how they actually transpired. The term is literally referred to as manipulative editing because that's what it is. No way about that. And I feel like in the rehearsal, Nathan is trying to be the personification of that. And that makes perfect sense. He's the show's star, writer, producer, creator, director. He is the show. His sensibilities are the show. So it makes sense for him to take on that role. No one else can play the manipulator. Nathan is the manipulator, both in front of and behind the camera. And this brings us back to that scene at the beginning. Nathan is again pulling back the curtain, now not of his show and its premise, but of the format as a whole. And he's doing that not directly, but through his performance as an actor. And I do believe he is an actor in this show. This is absolutely a performance. Now, there is no shortage of performances in reality TV. That is, again, not something new. You can see that in things like dating shows where people are clearly playing up their personalities and their flirtatious behaviors because consciously or subconsciously they know that that is what's going to get them more screen time, which is going to make them more fan favorites, which is going to get them their spotlight. I don't know if producers tell them that or if that's just something that they have picked up from being audiences to other shows over the years, but it happens. And we also have stuff like Gordon Ramsay, someone who, depending what show he's doing and in what country, depends on how much of a yelling asshole he portrays himself as. To touch on that a little further, I want to quickly step outside of that first episode so that way we can dig in a little deeper. Because in the second and third episodes, we see Nathan take this even further. At the end of episode 2, Nathan joins in to the rehearsal going on to fill in a missing role and further blurs the lines between the reality and production sides of the show. It's something that probably isn't ethical in terms of reality TV, but is just more and more comedy that he's throwing in as he goes. I feel like this aspect was missed when the New Yorker's Richard Brody wrote up the series' first few episodes. He isn't wrong in pointing out the dubious morality of Fielder and the show, but I think he is a touch misguided in the way he's doing so. And I do agree, just because someone agrees to be on your show doesn't mean they agree to be manipulated to the extent that Nathan and the people who make The Rehearsal are doing on the show. But they're still agreeing to be on the show, and that's part of it. If someone like Core is as unassuming as the show portrays him, these manipulations do suck. But Brody doesn't mention that Nathan is building off of the foundation of reality TV, instead referencing The Human Pyramid and another film I don't know how to pronounce, films that he refers to as docu-fiction. While I'm sure there are definite links between them and The Rehearsal, the reality TV links seem much more one-to-one if you ask me. And I think that if you sign up to be on reality TV, you are signing up to be manipulated. And I will say, it does feel to me like Nathan is signing himself up to be thrown under the bus for the series, letting himself be viewed as the manipulator, and in doing so getting to pull back the artifice of the media, flaws and all. Lastly, I just want to quickly point something out that I haven't done too much looking into, but it's something that I thought was interesting and worth highlighting, simply because it adds more evidence to me thinking that Nathan is playing a character as the producer and manipulator on this show. If you look at how he's credited, it's as Nathan Fielder, not as self, like other people on reality TV are credited. That seems like something. And that's where I thought the video was going to end. I felt like I had done a good job expressing myself and I could move past my analysis of this show. But I couldn't. Because of my 2-week release schedule, I knew this was going to be released the same day as the final episode of the season. That's why I wanted to keep my focus on examining the pilot. It intrigued me when I watched it, and it filled the hole in my schedule because of Andor's release date shift. But I kept watching the show. I liked it after all. The thing is, the more I watched, the more I felt as if my analysis had not gone far enough. Nathan kept pushing the meta aspect further. It was feeling less like an unscripted show and more like a Kaufman-esque exploration of himself. I knew I had to finish the video, because even though my schedule is self-imposed, it's something I need to keep to. I need a schedule in my life because if not, my videos would never be finished. But now I'm questioning myself. Can this video ever be finished? Can I actually do an analysis of this show that will tap into all of its depths? Does the fact that I own so many identical black t-shirts make it look like this was all one bulk shoot and not footage assembled over time? Does this sequence even work? Anyways, that's all for my thoughts on the pilot episode of The Rehearsal, but you may have thoughts, similar or different, and you should leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video, why not share it? My mom watches all these videos, yours can too. I appreciate you watching, and of course you can hit the like button, you can subscribe if you haven't, all that stuff. Like I said, leave a comment. It really helps me out. Hope you enjoyed. I've got other stuff you can check out. And until next time, have a good one.